Good morning, gentlemen. It's a wonderful time, and yesterday I attended a small cocktail party, and one of my friends asked me, he says, Captain, what the hell's going on in the Gaza Strip? As a military historian, can you tell us what's going on? What's going to happen to Hamas? And what's the further line of action there? Very good, because I haven't made some video on this aspect for quite some time. What exactly is happening now? Well, gentlemen, we all know the history of the conflict. It started in 1948 when the state of Israel was carved out of Arab lands by a mandate of the United Nations. I think it was a massive majority that time, and the world decided that the Jews must be given a separate place to stay and have a homeland, and so the state of Israel was created. At that time, I think, if I may venture to say, a big problem was created because nobody thought about the Arabs who had been displaced once the Jews came and settled in that area. So at that very time, there should have been some thought on a second state, or which was to be housing the Arabs. So the two-state solution which people are talking of now should have been done at that time, but it was not done. And maybe because Arabs did not have the political will, neither they have the means, and after the end of World War II, the Western powers were supreme. They did launch an attack in 1948 to stop the formation of the Jewish state, but they failed. Then again they tried in 1956 when President Nasser had nationalized the Suez Canal, and the British and the French were feeling very hurt. They started an attack on Egypt, but Nasser could convert that defeat into victory, and ultimately his position was strengthened. Nasser, of course, was a wonderful man. I have a lot of time for him. He was the man who led the coup against King Farouk of Egypt and sent him into exile. Then came something called the 67 War, which is the Seven-Day Wonder. And in that war, what really happened was that the Jews, that is the Israelis, wanted a sounding victory because of the intelligence. Nasser was found napping, and ultimately he had to go into hiding to escape the wrath of the people because they felt cheated that they had been so easily defeated by Israel. Israel took over the entire Sinai Peninsula at that time. They even captured the Golan Heights and the West Bank from Jordan and the Golan Heights from Syria. So the net result, gentlemen, was what it is. Israel was omnipotent. But then, Nasser, of course, didn't live long after that. And the man who replaced him was Anwar Sadat, a very pragmatic man. And he had tied his apron strings with the Russians initially, and he mounted an assault across the Suez Canal on the Yom Kippur Day, which is the holiest day for the Jews, caught them by surprise, and won a few victories. But in the end, he was also the losing end. That is when the Americans intervened on his side, persuaded Israel to have a ceasefire and sign a peace accord. That is the beginning. And after that, Israel, Jordan, and Egypt had a peace treaty, and Israel vacated the Sinai Peninsula, and Jordan was assured that its economy would be subsidized by the Americans, and gentlemen, things began to look better. And the man who brought this about was at that time the Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, and this man got the Nobel Prize. He didn't deserve it, let me tell you this, because he was a man who had advocated carpet bombing of civilians in Vietnam. Thousands and thousands of people died because of his decision. But then the Western powers were calling the shots, so he got the Nobel Prize. But anyway, semblance of peace was established. This continued for half a century, till this year, 2023. In between, despite lip service, the Arab nations and the Muslim world did nothing for the people in Gaza. Now, this is the harsh truth. Everybody was letting the status quo continue, and Donald Trump brought in the Abraham Accord, where another three countries, like Bahrain and the Sudan and Morocco, they also recognized Israel, and Saudi Arabia was moving closer and closer to Israel. Iran was always calling foul, but then Iran itself doesn't have the leadership of the Muslim world because it's a Shia nation. Gentlemen, the situation had worsened, and that is why the terrorist organizations took shape in the Gaza Strip, and one of these was Hamas. Now, the Arabs, particularly in Palestine, I don't know what is the product they have or they manufacture anything, do anything. They're living basically on the money being supplied to them by the United States and by Saudi Arabia and other rich countries. I think they're getting millions of dollars, and instead of doing any work or setting up some industry and progressing forward, they have always were making plans to how to destroy the Israeli state. And Hamas was the instrument through which they thought they'd do it. I think most of the residents of the Gaza Strip, where most of these people stay, are supporters of Hamas. And Hamas is the organization that is ruling that place, though there is a Mahmoud Abbas, there is the Prime Minister, but I don't think he's got any say in anything at all. So Hamas and the Arabs are wondering what is going to happen, what are we going to do? So they were instigated by Iran and some other countries, maybe Iraq also, and somehow its so-called famed Mossad failed in detecting that over 10,000, 20,000 rockets filtered into the Gaza, and they were kept ready for the assault. Now the Hamas thinking was that we will make the massive assault, say about 10,000 rockets, and capture a lot of Israeli territory, take a lot of hostages, negotiate with the Israelis, and look forward to the next step. They were sure they had built up their defenses in Gaza that Israel will fail. Well, it's easy to plan and think, but on the ground the reality is sometimes different, and that is precisely what happened. Phase A of the plan was a big success. 8,000, 10,000 rockets rained on Israel. The Iron Dome, which they had built up, collapsed. It could not handle such a deluge of rockets, and net result was that the Israelis were on the back foot. 1,500 or maybe more Israelis died, and close to 300 or maybe more were taken hostages, including about 40 soldiers, which is a sad commentary on the efficacy of the Israeli intelligence. So at that time, Hamas thought that they'd won the war. But there's always a sting in the tail. America could not allow Israel to lose. And even some of the Arab countries do not want Hamas to win. I can make a statement here and say, because they themselves will face a danger from Hamas like they faced a danger from the ISI and Baghdadi. And we must remember that Baghdadi did survive for a couple of years. The ISI ruled a big area in Iraq and Syria, and ultimately they were wiped out, and Baghdadi died a very, very sad death. I won't discuss that here, but gentlemen, the point I'm making is that terrorist organizations are not going to be accepted by the world. And this was a terrorist attack. Now the backlash came. The Americans moved their forces in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Indian Ocean facing Iran. And Iran, seeing the threat, also piped down slightly. And the Houthis in Yemen, they declared war. They launched rockets on Israel, but these were shot down by Saudi Arabia. Now that's also a fact. And Egypt closed the borders to the Gaza Strip, And when the Israeli offensive began, they began to run toward the exit points to escape to Egypt, but the Egyptians wouldn't allow them to enter. So much for the solidarity of the Arabs with the Palestinians. Gentlemen, the Hamas are good fighters, but fighting a professional army is an entirely different kettle of fish. Bravery is not a substitute for victory. And I understand the Hamas fighters fought very bravely, but that's not enough. The Israeli army has moved into a big way, and since the area is very small, just about 30 miles by 12 miles, and there's not much of a place to hide. But the Hamas had made a intricate web of tunnels interconnecting into hundreds of miles. They thought that they would be able to hold off the Israelis by the help of these tunnels. And some of these tunnels were absolutely secret. They were starting off under hospitals, schools, residential buildings, and they were very sure that Israelis will not bomb these areas, and so they'll be able to survive and fight. But the Israelis have fought tenaciously, and they've been aided by the American Special Forces. At the same time, the American forces, the two aircraft carriers acting as a deterrent, and I don't think Iran or Turkey has the guts to challenge America as things stand. So, gentlemen, the war is on. And initially, what looked like a stalemate in the sense that I was thinking the Hamas is fighting back, but it's not happened. Hamas has been giving up ground every day, and the Israelis have now started flooding those tunnels, which are miles and miles of them. It's another question who made those tunnels. This required high technical skill, and I think the only country who could have done it is China. China is one of those countries, which always fishes and picks up the right fish to eat, and they thought this is a fine place. Even the maps now have started showing there's no Israel. Well, they can show anything, the Chinese. They even showed that certain big portions of India, like the Aksai Chin and Northeast Frontier Agency, Arunachal Pradesh, are part of China. Well, they can show anything. They aren't showing Israel on their maps, fair enough, but they aren't gaining anything out of it. Because the group they were backing, Hamas, is now on the back foot. Hundreds of Hamas fighters have been killed. That's a fact. It's a very sad thing that the Israelis lost, say, about 1,500, but I presume thousands of Hamas fighters and innocent Gaza Arabs have been killed. Now, the word innocent is a little of a misnomer because Hamas was thriving in the Gaza Strip. They had built up rocket launching sites right under residential buildings in garages, and they had the intricate set of tunnels and bomb-proof shelters under hospitals and schools. So obviously, to say that the people in Gaza didn't know about it, it's a bit of a joke. Everybody knew about it, and they were giving the support to Hamas. Maybe it's under threat, inducement, I can't say about it, but they probably thought that there's a good chance that we could have an independent state. I think the independent state by this attack has now become more and more distant. It's not going to be accepted so easily till Hamas is destroyed. I think the Americans have also decided that Hamas must be destroyed like ISI or Al Qaeda. Now, these two organizations, though they are still there in some pockets in the world, but they've been wiped out. They don't have that sort of clout which they had when Baghdadi was ruling the Caliphate of Iraq and Syria. And Hamas is too small an area to be very frank, which Hamas is controlling. That is the Gaza Strip. And now, since the tunnels are getting flooded and the Americans have lent out special technologically bombs, to the Israelis, who perfected their own sponge bombs, which can block the tunnels, and that is going to be something very dangerous. For whom? For Hamas. I do not think, in my assessment, that Hamas is going to last any longer. Another 2 months, and probably it could be all over by the shouting. But now the question is, what happens further? Saudi Arabia and the UAE, in UAE in particular, had put up a resolution in the Security Council asking for a ceasefire just about 2 days back. And this was vetoed by the Americans. The American game is now very simple, including that of Israel. They want to decimate Hamas once for all, like they had decimated the ISI. The ISI, as you know, was opposed to the Saudi monarchy. I don't know about Hamas, but I don't think the Saudis would be too happy if Hamas is able to win this war and become a bigger ogre, because they could be under threat. Egypt is also wondering, because the Muslim Brotherhood which is operating there is sympathetic and is an ally of Hamas. And the Muslim Brotherhood has been banned in Egypt. Many of their leaders have been executed. And even one of their presidents, President Morsi, he had the sympathy of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he's no more now. I don't know. He had a chance, but he didn't make use of that chance, and General Sisi took over. And he's not allowing the Palestinians to enter Egypt. And only a few selected people, those who are holding foreign passports, something like that, are being allowed in. And the Israeli bombardment is continuing from the air. There is no air cover. And the Houthis, as I told you, fired a few missiles, but they were shot down by the Saudi Arabians. And gentlemen, the situation is now in a state of flux. State of flux in the sense that let's accept the fact that the Muslim world is not united. Also, everybody has the act to grind, and there are three contenders for the leadership of the Muslim world. First, of course, is Saudi Arabia, which is the rightful heir, and I would say the best person to lead the Muslim world countries forward. And they have an excellent leader in Prince Salman. I really like his style of working and the way he's gone about bringing Saudi Arabia up from obscurantism to the modern age. And then there is Iran, with the second contender, but that is the great pretender. I think it can only be a pretender. It cannot ever be a leader of the Muslim world. First of all, it's too extreme in its views. Secondly, it's a Shia, and I don't think the Shias are going to be accepted leaders by the Sunnis. They have daggers drawn together. And Iran basically has declared America as its number one enemy. Now, America has done a lot of good also in the Middle East, has underwritten the security of so many countries. So I don't think these countries are going to break away from America, which is giving millions of dollars as aid to Egypt and Jordan. Their economies are being subsidized by America. You don't expect them to start attacking America. So Iran is on the wrong foot. Then the third contender is Turkey. I don't think Turkey has a chance ever, because Turkey, under the Ottoman Empire, was ruling the Arabs for hundreds of years. Egypt, the Gaza Strip, even the holy cities of Makkah and Medina, they were all under Turkish rule, the Ottoman Empire. And during the First World War, the Arabs were fighting against the Turks for freedom. I don't think the Arabs have forgotten that, and I don't think Turkey is ever going to become the leader of the Muslim world. That again leaves the field free for Saudi Arabia, and I think that's the best thing that could happen. But all the same, these two countries, that is Turkey and Iran, would try their tricks some way or the other, and they have a simple game to try and antagonize America and try to defeat it and wipe Israel out of the map. Now, this is not the aim of the other countries who have made peace with Israel. They would like things to progress. Of course, everyone wants a two-state solution, but nobody's put the proper proposal. I don't see anybody and nobody is able to demarcate any area. Now, will Egypt give some of its area for this state, or will Jordan give some of its area for this proposed two-state solution? That is the point. You can't have a small state of just 30 miles by 12 miles. That is, if you make Gaza as the strip, you have that small state. I don't think that state is going to survive in that case. Gentlemen, so it's a very, very precarious situation which we are coming to. The war is on in the Gaza Strip, and the Israelis are gaining. And as per my reports, I think there's a certain amount of element of fatalism which is creeping into the Hamas fighters, and they are wondering what's going to happen to them further. And I won't be wrong, I won't be surprised if tomorrow more and more of the Hamas fighters start surrendering, because they are not getting the replenishment of missiles and rockets and other things which they need. And then, they have no backup defenses. I mean, you can't defend an area with just about 30 miles by 12 miles. It's very difficult. You may have any amount of intricate tunnels and this thing and that thing which they had made, but those are all being flooded by Israel now from seawater. And Israel is determined that they will finish off Hamas. I think Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also made it very clear that he cannot support a terrorist organization. And he was one of the first leaders who supported Israel moment those 10,000 rockets rained on the Jewish state. So, gentlemen, we're coming to a tremendous situation here where we don't know what's happening. We'll have to wait and see. It's a very, very tricky situation. And the war is on. And it is going to continue for another 2 months, in my view, maybe a little more. But I have no doubt that Hamas is going to lose. It's going to be the end of Hamas, like it was of the ISI. And I don't think there's going to be any obituaries or any shedding of tears at the destruction of Hamas, even in the Muslim world. But gentlemen, the problem is not going to be solved that easily, even if Hamas is defeated. There are some countries like, say, Iran and Iraq, Turkey, which will have to be placated, or maybe they'll have to see reason, or because the problem is going to continue. So, gentlemen, I think that's enough for today. We are all of us reached a situation we would like the war to end. I would like it to end. It's a wonderful place. Gaza is a beautiful place. I wish I get a chance to visit it, but I can't go there now. And Israel, of course, is a wonderful place also. I've been so many times to the UAE. It's almost like heaven. I went to London a few days back and looked so drab compared to the UAE, Dubai in particular. So, gentlemen, we don't want all the good things of life to finish off. We want these to grow. And Prince Salman is on the right track, leading Saudi Arabia forward. But there are so many red herrings, and Iran, Iraq, Syria. I mean, we have to watch out. Turkey, of course, more bombastic, more talk, nothing much. It's still a member of NATO, won't go against NATO. So, gentlemen, we have to be. The Russians are there fishing in the waters, but Russia, we must remember, is a spent force. It has not been able to beat even the hell out of Ukraine yet. So the question that they'll be able to come into Gaza and do something, I think is zero. We don't expect that. China, again, the same story. It doesn't have the capability to do anything in this region. And the entire force with the Americans, I'm glad they don't want to use it. I don't think they're going to use it. But it's a deterrent. And Israel is now moving forward. Let's see, gentlemen, what happens. I think maybe in my next video I have some good news for you all. I'll say goodbye and God bless. If you like my channel, please share it with your friends. Come back again. And take care. Wait for my next video.